Hi everyone, we are live and look at this, we are on time tonight, only 1 minute late, and it was my fault as per usual. So let's see who we've got in the chat tonight. We got a lot of folks here already. I see Q is already in, Iron Daisies, Cap'n Mac 82, sorry, my thing just started making a lot of noise over here. Cap'n Mac 82, BS in California, Jonathan Stevie is in, Dave Smith is in. We have Crip Crack Attack. I can never read that without laughing. Dave Smith, that is not the famous Dave Smith. It's the other Dave Smith. Who else do we have? Howling Mad is in. We have... Wow, Squid Monkey is in. Lots of people have been here for a while. John Morgan, Tristan Goodrich is in. Valhallarchist is in. Don't know if I said that right. Oh, you guys, you're killing me with the names. Thanakis Lupus, Watchdog, Aaron Miller, Judged is here. Zeram Proxy. Congratulations on being here before I was. Brooks Company Douglas is in. James Pellerin, Sean Marolf, Established 1980, William Cooper, Roosevelt Ireland, James Pellerin, Tender Rat, Doomed Man, BB, Shepherd's Ford, Matthew Malloy, Bisley Blackhawk, Dwayne Christensen, Fred Hill is in, Nate Marks, hopefully no relation. Rose Blight, Patriot Dave, and there's Robert Chappelle, To a Metalhead, Tina Stoker, Tim Allen, the whole gang is in. No Trash Man tonight, guys, so we don't have our usual intro. So I will read this super chat from Robert Chappelle that says howdy from Vegas, and we are just... Someone says libertarian noises intensify, boogaloo, boogaloo. We can't say that anymore, which will be the next video. I'm not even going to try to get that thing monetized, and we're gonna have to pray with that one. But anyways, so since we don't have the intro today, we're just going to get into it. So today I have with us Eric July, and I am very excited because I've been a fan of his for quite some time, and I was just telling him how I was scared to ask him to come on the show. So I feel like you can do a better job of introducing yourself than I can. So for the folks that are not in the know, why don't you tell them about yourself and who you are and what you're about?
Well, depending on where you know me from is going to determine your perspective. Of course, Young Ripper 59 here on YouTube, talking everything from Liberty, comics, gaming, a little bit of everything. But most people know me from the political commentary. Wherever you see me, I'm just kind of giving guys my perspective. Also, frontman of Backwards, metalcore act with some other influences as well. So yeah, it just really depends. Talking head, old gamer, comic geek, singer, screamer, rapper, whatever. Just doing a little bit of everything. Like I said, it all depends on your perspective.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that because, I know you from obviously like the Libertarian stuff and Backwards and stuff. And I think you guys performed at PorcFest one year, right?
We did. I think it wasn't last year. I think it's the year before last that we performed at PorcFest. That was exciting. We every now and then we do some like Libertarian festivals because we are like the Libertarian band.
The only one.
Right. We're the only ones, right? So yeah, we do a lot of different things, and PorcFest was pretty fun. That crowd was pretty rowdy.
Mm-hmm. So I know you from that, and then one day, so my husband, he's like super nerd. He's into Magic the Gathering and Pokemon and comic books and all that stuff. And like one day, I walked into his office, and he was like watching your videos, and I was like, "Oh, dude, you're watching Eric July?" And he was like, "Who?" And I was like, "That's Eric July," and he was like, "It is?" And he was like, "Oh!" And I thought it was so funny.
Yeah, no, it's like, I do obviously Blaze TV stuff as well, and it's funny to see like the comments of people that are watching like either me on the News and Why It Matters or Stu's show or something like that, and they're like, "Is that Young Ripper?" It's like, Yeah, it's the same guy. We don't just look alike, I'm the same person. But like I said, it just really determines, like, I guess people's perspective. It depends on what people know me from. And I've pride myself in sort of doing that. And, these are things that I know and love, comic books. And sort of that's been my way to bridge the gap for people that otherwise would never, ever hear this message of liberty or anything like that. So, yeah, it just depends on your perspective or what you know me from. So it's always cool to see people like don't know me as a political commentator. It's like I thought the man just talked about comics, or vice versa. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Even definitely with the music, we get that a lot. It's like I saw one of the covers that I did with Lauren Babick. It has now 5 million views now. We covered King for a Day by Pierce DeVille. And people was like, is that Young Ripper? Like, who? I didn't know he could do that. Like, it's just depends on where you know me from. And like I said, that's something that I sought to do. Like, that was purposely. There's a lot of things that I love to do that aren't necessarily centered around pure libertarianism. And I just wanted to showcase that. And that was my way of connectivity. And that was my way of breaking like that communicative ice, if you will. And I've been able to sort of plant seeds because of the different things that I'm sort of a part of.
Yeah. And of course, you are on Twitter and your tweets are fire all of the time. And when I first asked you, I was like, oh man, this is going to be great, because it was that weird feud going on where like Nick Sarwark was himself and came out and was trying to say you're a Nazi sympathizer or something.
Oh my God. That freaking guy, man. Yeah, that it's funny because that recent ordeal happened, and Nick Sarwark tried to latch on the Talib Kweli because Talib Kweli obviously is not fond of myself, Tom Woods, or anything like that, and because he's not as well. Nick doesn't like myself, Dave, Tom, all of us. He tried to latch onto that wagon, right? And it's just funny watching it blow up in his face because Talib Kweli ended up calling him a racist. So it was just awesome to sort of see that. It did kind of show that I say all the time, I'm like, dude, like you can't reason with these guys anyway. And no amount of virtue signaling is going to make you like them or make them like you, excuse me. So it's just funny watching that blow up in his face, because he tried to latch on to that wagon and it didn't even work. But that seems to be like par for the course for Nick. Something always blowing up in his face and him getting racial on his own post.
Accurate. Like that time that he tried to say that like Ron Paul was a Russian plant in the 80s or something.
He has some of the most outlandish things to say. And it seems the common theme is that if you're a libertarian and you're notable, like people know who you are, it seems like he wants to take aim at you. It's like he doesn't like libertarians with followings. Definitely people that exist outside of the LP. So it's weird. It's such a weird thing, because I would think that would be something that you would like. You would like the fact that there's people that are outside of maybe the political spectrum that's out there getting the word out. But he doesn't treat it like that. He treats it like we're all enemies. Like, and I want to be as clear as possible. It wasn't me that initiated that conflict with Sarwark. That was all him. Like, he just randomly started coming at me, and the same can be said about Ron Paul, Tom Wood. This is something that he initiated when he started coming at us, and we just finished it. And he's a laughing stock of libertarianism, and he's going to remain that way. So as long as he chooses to use that as a tactic.
And he somehow remains as party chair. I don't really know how
I think it says more about the party than it does anything else. Is that they allow that man who seems to work to the opposite end of bringing people into the party, making enemies of people that he's more. It's like he's more into trying to reel in folks that are so illibertarian and anti-libertarian, and wants to push away people that are actual libertarians, which doesn't really seem conducive to spreading anything. So I think it says more about the nature of that party than it does anything else. I think that's why they will continue to remain sort of politically irrelevant, more so culturally irrelevant is more so what it is, because they'll always be looked as the third party, but more so culturally irrelevant is more so where I think they'll remain. Definitely if they got a guy like that who seems to be completely disconnected from reality.
I'm lucky in that he doesn't know who I am yet. But I mean, I did. My one claim to fame is I spoke at my state convention, I think in 2017. And everyone was like, "Oh man, your speech is so great," because I talked about culture and like the importance of getting into the culture, which you talk about all the time. And they're like, "Oh, that's so great. You have such great ideas." And then we sat down and I made the mistake apparently of saying that I think drugs should be like decriminalized and legalized. And the fight, oh my, I got yelled at. I got shushed. I almost got kicked out of dinner.
Sounds about right.
And I was never invited back ever again.
Sounds about right. I've done one convention as well. Texas. I did Texas convention. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's just it's not enough unapologetic libertarians that are there. It's like they pride themselves in this whole pragmatism thing, which I understand. Like whatever. Like I'm not one of those guys that thinks that there's not room to be pragmatic. There's you can inch towards freedom, right? But you need those individuals that are like uncompromising and pretty front with it. Like, hey, this is who we are. This is what libertarianism is. You can be both. You can still work towards that, because I don't think anybody believes in like this light switch form of libertarianism that is just going to happen overnight. So obviously, I think we can work towards that direction, but you still need those unapologetic libertarians that are who they are and don't apologize for it. Like, it's just what it is. This is what libertarianism is. We shouldn't have to be like, well, we can't say that. No, that's what it's about. And I would rather us be upfront with it, because we know at least we're bringing people in that understand the philosophy. Because the worst thing and I think we saw some of that a little bit last election, where you get these people who are like, because they're trying to pander to this particular group, leftists, they don't really understand libertarianism. So they're in and out, right? They're in and out. They may support a candidate for this, and then they're in it, they're out. Then they next election cycle go support Bernie Sanders or something, like, which is completely antithetical to libertarianism, but it highlights how they don't really understand it, which is why I think it's so important to be principled. If you are to go that political route, I don't necessarily do it, but if you are to go that political route, you need to be unapologetic, because you're just going to have this sort of revolving door of people that come in because, oh, this sounds cool. We want to decriminalize this, and then they're like, wait a minute, you mean this is also y'all's position on libertarianism? Oh, I'm out. You don't want those types of people. You want to be upfront with people and let them know who exactly you are, so that way that you're bringing people in that are there to stay, because they actually absolutely understand what libertarianism is about.
Right. Yeah. Now at this point, like when I get into debates with people, because I mean, I'm in Massachusetts, let's be real. I'm surrounded by hardcore leftists. So whenever we get into a discussion, I had Jacob Hornberger on once, and he said something that really resonated with me. And he just said, look, the two of us are operating in two totally different frameworks. So we can't really talk about it until you understand my framework. And so that's what I just tell. That's like my cop out now. I'm like, look, you don't get my framework. And that is okay. It's
okay. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that exists. I think that's how libertarians win. It's like you have to understand that. And this is why I think that it's useful to have people in sort of different sectors, right? In sort of different fields and stuff like that. This is what Sarwark doesn't seem to understand, is that there's a battle to be fought in different areas. This is how the left won. This is how they continue to win, because they recognize, definitely from a cultural standpoint, if we can get control of that, we're going to get control of the youth, and we're going to get control going forward. We're going to maintain it. It's a battle to be fought everywhere. People funnel it, and they have their particular target audience, and that's what some people don't seem to even understand about me. They say, hey, if you were a little less like sort of rough around the edges, maybe you'd introduce people, you like sort of reel them in with the honey and stuff like that. I'm like, that's not who I am. That's not why people follow me. They follow me because I'm in your face. I'm blunt. I'm who I am. Like I'm like a regular dude that just happens to be knowledgeable on what it is that we're discussing. So, but there's room for that, and there are rooms for like Tom Woods of the world, where Tom Woods, wherever he goes, he's going to be the smartest man in the room, no matter where it is that Tom Woods is at. He can be among the people that think they're smart, and best believe Tom Woods is the smartest person wherever he goes.
I've told him that recently too.
That's what it is. And there's an avenue for that. You need those types are very useful. you don't need everybody to be on the same exact page, right? To be fighting the same exact sort of side of the battle. That's not what it is. I mean, if you're good at this and this is sort of your realm, that's okay. And I actually try my best not to crap on other people that go out of their way to do sort of the focus on other things, or they have their sort of niche way, and it may work. And if it works, it works. If you're bringing people into the philosophy, that's fine. But you have like the Sarwarks of the world that don't like that. They're like, well, you got to do it our way, or you're not doing it the right way, which doesn't seem to make any sense. And definitely going forward, like in the long term, when it comes to the idea is we want to work towards a freer society, you need troops, man, and you need people that have sort of those different like specialties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going back to, how people say that you're too rough around the edges or something. It's simple, I know, but my favorite video you ever did was when you were like, fuck them hoe-ass roads. I watched that like 10 times in a row. I loved it.
That got around. That one got around, but that's who I am, man. It's like, that's what it's about with me. And I think that people actually watch me, follow me for that type of content. If I switched it up and was a suit and tie, shaved the beard off, was very like intellectual with it, as far as being not only just smart with it, but 100% respectable as far as not rough around the edges, just smooth as all get out with it, I feel like people would not follow me, because that's not what they follow me for. They follow me because of I am who exactly I am. And there's a battle to be like won here. And that's where I want to be front lines in sort of that cultural perspective. I get a lot of people that reach out to me that are like, okay, you funneled it in a way that I understood. And what I always use when, me and Jeffrey Tucker seem to always be at the same damn events all the time. And I always talk about, when I'm giving like my speeches and stuff, Jeffrey Tucker's usually in the audience. And I'm like, him and I, because me and Jeffrey Tucker are like really good friends. A lot of people wouldn't know that because we're like total opposite as far as who we are. Like, but him and I are like, when we go to these events, it's usually me and Jeffrey Tucker rolling together. We kick it with each other. And it's like, I give the speeches and I'm like, you see him, he's like as professional as he can get. He has his little bow tie and so forth. I say like there's a particular crowd that he could go to that would more so be responsive to who he is. And there's a crowd that I go to that's going to be more responsive and more receptive to who I am. And generally, maybe if I went to that particular crowd that he's in, they may not want to listen to me, and vice versa. But that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think a lot of people who think their way is the only way think that if they're not doing it their way, then it just isn't being done the right way, which doesn't seem to make any sort of sense, because you understand the most effective libertarians, they all have their kind of thing. Dave Smith, he's a comedian, right? I'm a musician, and I talk about art and stuff like that. That's sort of my thing. I know you for, a lot of gun related material and stuff like that. That's what I go to you for. So it's like we all have our things, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And we've built our audience, and I'm sure every last one of us has people that we've introduced to the philosophy that never heard it broken down like that, but we bridged that gap because of what it is that we were doing. And there's nothing wrong with that at all.
And I really like, when you, as I mentioned before, you talk a lot about like culture and comic books and art and all of that. And the video that you did recently about the Captain America statue.
It's getting bad. And it's getting more worse than what I anticipated. Because I knew on the other side of this, I was like, everybody now, because now they have a reason to do it, they're going to virtue signal their pants off. And it's going to be, people are going to go out of their way to be offended. And then people are going to go out of their way to try to appease these weirdos who are going out of their way to be offended. And that's sort of just where we're at. Like that, when I saw that, I was like, are you serious? They had to apologize for a Captain America statue?
That was like in like a screenshot or something, right?
It's like bizarre. Like, what is offensive about that? And I'm sitting there analyzing it top to bottom. I'm like, is there something that I'm missing that would make this offensive? No, it's not offensive at all. but that's where we're at. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, because now it's like a game now. It's like people are trying to be offended for each other. I saw a post today where someone's like, now because of the Texas Rangers were offensive, now we got to change the name of the baseball team because of I was like, if y'all touch my Texas Rangers, we're going to have some problem. But nonetheless, what's offensive about that? I don't know. They're going out of their way to try to find what's offensive, and this is why we can't. I mean, damn, we're talking about damn pancake syrup, man, and it's getting to that point. Like, just when I think it's outrageous as it's gonna be, it gets even more outrageous.
Right. Yeah, I saw the tweet where someone was like, "Oh man, like three white guys on the Rice Krispies box," and I was like, "Wait, those are all dudes?" That's where I went with that. I had no idea. But I mean, I think in that video you said it really well, and I hadn't really thought of it this way before, but it's like people that just have no control over their emotions, where they get offended by like a picture of a statue. And Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's like they can't control their emotions, and it's like they're children, man. It's like they're grown, but they're children mentally, because if you look at something and you don't like it, it should be like whatever. But now, like I said, being offended now it's like a currency, man. It's like points. And they're trying to tally them up because they smell blood in the water, and they're like, oh, well, now we know they'll bend to our whimsical, more so ideals. And here we are. And it's just like I say, it's just gonna get worse before it gets better, until people just be like, you know what, this is enough is enough. And I do think at some point in time, the pendulum, because this is culture, man, it always swings the other way. It will at some point, but I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better, because we had this series of events. Obviously, the George Floyd thing kind of kicked all of this off, and here we are now. Everybody and their mama going out of their way to just signal their pants off. And I just want to be clear, like look, just so everybody knows, including the audience, when they talk about black voices lifting and amplifying black voices, they ain't talking about me. Like it ain't me that they talk about. It's a particular narrative. Generally, woe is me. I'm the victim of everything. It's so hard being black, which I think, again, that approach is for losers. Nonetheless, it's actually very offensive that people think that's sort of how it is. It makes it seem as if being black is a weakness, right? It's a weakness, and going about my life is just so hard. Now, that's not anything that I would ever perpetuate, and I certainly wouldn't perpetuate that like to my audience or anything like that, even though I know that right now it's like socially the thing to do,
right?
To make people feel sorry for themselves and feel sorry for you because you are black or something like that. And that's not really my thing, but again, it's currency now, so now everybody's going to go out of their way to sort of try to be offended for whatever reason, and they're going to try to get different corporate entities, different groups, different organizations, and artwork to sort of depict what it is that they want, because people are bending.
Yeah, I got an email from like my like natural deodorant company the other day about everything that they're doing, and it's like, I feel like if these companies, and like, so in Boston, they just announced that like racism is a public health emergency. And like, it's been known for a long time that the Boston Police Department is like pretty racist and corrupt. Right. And it's like, so why do they suddenly care now? And it's because it's in vogue, because if they really cared, they would have been like investigating these officers and things a long time ago, before people came and started burning shit down.
Yeah, exactly. You put it perfectly. It's like saying that, like, it's about more so the perception, and people want to feel good about themselves. A lot of these people that are leaders of these organizations and so forth, they're just basking in their own ego right now, which is why everybody's like, look at me. People give themselves power that they actually don't even have in a lot of cases. Like, if I hear the term ally one more time, I'm gonna lose my damn mind about these self-righteous white folk who have placed the responsibility upon themselves to try to move the world of the black man so they can succeed in life. It's like, dude, you don't possess such power anyway. Like, I've talked about this with, the genre that I perform at, with the metalcore genre and the hardcore genre, and how all of these weirdos, skinny, scrawny, broke white cats in my genre who get off of tours and they go work at Firehouse Subs. No disrespect to anybody that works at Firehouse. A job is a job. I've always said that. It's no disrespect. What I'm saying is that I don't go work at Firehouse when I get off of my tours. You know what I mean? I generally I'm financially fine. My bandmates are financially fine. We all got the band's gig because we own our music. We make money off of it, and we all have like professional side gigs that we all do, and we're a-okay. For some broke dude to sit up here in our genre to put it upon himself like Black Lives Matter and we have to do something, like what possibly can you do anyway? You're not my ally. What possibly could you do anyway if there was some boogeyman white dude ready to like snatch my head off? So what possibly could you do for me? You could do absolutely nothing. And it's silly because we've sort of been blacklisted. They've tried to blacklist us from our genre. It hadn't worked, but they've absolutely attempted to. And all the sorts of arguments that I've had to get into, the band has had to get into with these guys when it comes to like gun ownership. When it comes to just when somebody says taxation, it's definitely one of the two first things they point to are roads and police, ironically enough. And it's like, okay, now you guys are like, oh, well, the state's an issue and so forth, because it's like politically expedient for you now to do so. I'm not taking these guys seriously at all, because on any other given day, they're going to advocate for policies that are diametrically opposed anyway. Like I said, it just doesn't make sense when you act as if, let's say, black folks are under attack, and then on the other hand, you want to make it more difficult for them to be able to own guns. And don't get me started on the history of gun legislation and gun regulation in this country anyway. That's something that they don't want to have even a conversation about, but they advocate for those two diametrically opposed. Oh, nobody needs an AR-15 and nobody needs this and that. And it's diametrically opposed to putting the power in the hands of black individuals so they can actually protect themselves in the event there's someone that is going to use aggression upon them. But yeah, these damn weirdos, man, aren't to be taken seriously at all.
Oh, and it's funny you say that, because I was actually doxxed. What was it? 3 weeks? No, two or 3 weeks ago now. Because, with all the protests and everything, I was like, hey, I support peaceful protests and da-da-da-da. Everyone stay safe from the rioters and, remember Second Amendment. And I got doxxed for that because I was told that it was racist to promote gun ownership. And I mean, these people, they came after me. They came after my business. They were threatening to come after my license because I'm a licensed therapist. And it was like there was someone that tried to break into our house. I have gotten so good over the last few weeks of like every time I hear a noise, like sweeping the house.
Hey, got to. Got to all day long. I mean, that's why there's something in that case right there, for those sorts of issues. You know what I mean? And for again, it's like, and to go to that, what happened was, and I've dealt with a similar situation where people jumped on me for saying that, when you've seen that police aren't going to protect your businesses, they're not going to protect you. It's on you to protect yourselves and your property. And people have jumped on to me, dare I say that, like gun ownership, because I say it straight up, like looters are stupid, like, and it is what it is. If someone, definitely in Texas, we don't have, I know a lot of other places have those issues with duty to retreat laws. We don't got those problems at all. You try to break up in here, you get aired out. All they gonna come do is drag you up out of here, and we're gonna go about our business. Thankfully, we don't have those sorts of issues. But I was talking about how I only see that de-escalating until people put that power in their own hands and protect themselves and their businesses. And people jumped up on me like, well, you're saying, they always have to straw man your position. Like, you're saying you want to shoot peaceful protests. Like, who the hell said that? When did I ever say anything like that? And I don't know anybody that's ever advocated for that.
That's exactly what I was accused of too.
Bingo. Yep. Bingo. They say that you want to. No, nobody's made that claim. All we're saying is that the power needs to be put in your hands, and ultimately that's just what's going to have to happen. You're going to have to protect yourself, your property, your family, and so forth. And this is why gun owner, and people realize that. Obviously, you see gun sales are through the roof. When I went and got another rifle, like I didn't have a big selection to choose from. You know what I mean? Because they flying off the shelves right now, because people do understand that, and that is an important thing, certainly to understand. As far as gun ownership and certainly gun rights in this regards. But yeah, people jump down my throat as well because I dared to say, well, you're going to have to protect your own business, your own family. And if this still starts to segue into sort of more residential areas, which it did in some areas, if it starts to, you need to be prepared to handle that. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is. And for people to be offended at that, like whatever.
And I have learned so many different insults and racial slurs from seeing the things that people call you.
Oh my God.
For not being a leftist.
And that's it. And I'm glad you said it like you said it like that, because a lot of people think that those terms are like reserved for black, like conservatives. No, it's not. All you have to do is be black and a non-leftist. That's when they come for you, because they say that you don't have, I got white leftists, black leftists. Like people want to talk about, when I talk about racism, like as far as what I've experienced in my life, I am not, and I've been living in the South my entire life. I have experienced more racism from leftists than I have of these sort of, I don't know, Klansmen that are just walking around in hoods everywhere, like people act like they are throughout the South, which they aren't. But nonetheless, they call me all sorts of names in the event that they disagree with me, or I don't have the generic black opinion that they feel as if I'm supposed to have because of my skin tone. And it's weird because generally I'm the one that's going against the state, right? Yeah. And I look at the state as the biggest tool of the racist, you know what I mean? And it has been historically. And dare I be in opposition to that, and dare I want to put power in the hands of other people. They call me all kinds of coons and names and stuff that sort of suggest that I'm a lesser than black person because dared I have that particular position, which again, that's literal racism, because they're applying a set of traits and attributes to me that I'm supposed to have based on my skin tone. And this is why I always say, like, white people are allowed to have whatever position that they want to have. And generally we don't attack their whiteness. You know what I mean? We may say they're stupid or whatever, but generally we don't say they're a lesser than white person because they are politically what. You got white folk on the far left communists. You got white folk on the complete opposite end of that. And they are awarded that. Black folks, not so much. If you aren't a black leftist, then all of a sudden you are a lesser than black person. And yes, you're right. Like over these last couple of weeks, man, I've been called names I ain't even damn heard. I'm like,
yeah, I saw. Was it yesterday? Someone called you like Uncle Ruckus, and I was like, what?
Yeah, like dude from the Boondocks, man. And it's like they come up with these names to just derogatory as they want to be. Yep. And I've been called that by white folks. I've been called that by black folks. I've been called that by what have you, because they generally have an expectation as far as how I'm supposed to think because I'm black, what political and social positions that I'm supposed to have because I'm black, and God forbid that I deviate from that. Yep. Well, you're a fake black person. It doesn't even make any damn sense. Like, because I can't. It's not like I can hide being black. It's just certainly not like I've ever shied away from the fact that I am a black man. Like, that's nothing that I've ever shied away from. That's who I am. Is born that way. I don't try to hide it. It is exactly what it is. But let them tell it because I don't have the proper like political or social positions, and then here we are.
Yeah, and like the whole thing with like the boogaloo, how they're saying that that's all like white supremacist stuff now. And I made the mistake of getting into a conversation on Twitter and like posting some pictures of all kinds of different folks, and like the responses I was getting was like, oh, you found like the one token, people purposely went there to take pictures like that for propaganda. And one guy, which really threw me for left field, was like, oh, that's only because they're gay. And it's like, what? That was a weird flex for a leftist. That is, and it's like, bizarre. How would you know?
It's so bizarre. It's like they suggest that because of whatever skin tone, whatever sexuality, or whatever gender. I'm sure you deal with that all the time. Whatever gender you are, it's like they expect you to have certain positions, and if you don't, then it's one of those things like someone's, I don't know, coercing. Like I have a big boogeyman white man sitting outside out of frame right now, forcing me to say what it is that I want to say or something like that. Like I got a battery pack in my backpack and he got some remote control or some, and he just just controlling me or something like that. It's like, dude, black folks, gay, lesbian, whatever folk, women, they can come to their own conclusions, and that's fine. They don't, just because they didn't come to your damn conclusion does not make them illegitimate, or it certainly doesn't mean that they got there solely because they're trying to, I don't know, be on the opposite end of what they feel as if is the general perspective of what a woman is supposed to believe or a black person is supposed to believe. So they think that it's like tokenism or some. It's like, no, dude, I'm black. I recognize the importance of, let's say, gun ownership, and it's not because someone is controlling me or something like that. That is just a legitimate position that I came to by myself.
Right. Soft bigotry of low expectations.
Absolutely. That's what it is. Exactly what it is.
We have a lot of super chats that came in, and so I want to grab them in case some of them are questions for you, and I know we only have you until 8 o'clock. So Rose Blight says, sorry I missed your live show when it was live, but I did catch it later. I tried to do a live from home the other day. It did not go well. Thank you, TazFast7. Sean Marolf says, when was the last time you were actually monetized? My video about the Antifa video game was monetized, and it's the only video that I've posted that's been monetized for like a month and a half.
Wow.
Rose Blight says, you ever catch him playing with G.I. Joe action figures? Guys are so cute when you catch them doing that. Oh, that must be in reference to my husband. No, we have some G.I. Joe action figures, but he doesn't play with them. Big Q Endeavor says, I want to thank the both of you for your messages. Eric, your tweets are the only thing keeping me around that cesspool called Twitter.
Well, thank you, man. I'm trying out here. I'm trying.
Robert Chappelle says, we're all real libertarians, says this minarchist. Twerk1 says, ask Eric what he feels about California trying to eliminate the part of the Constitution protecting against discrimination. Your new vids just popped up on YouTube.
I think maybe that's maybe in reference to one of my recent videos about discrimination. Look, the reality is this. Property rights are property rights, and part of owning property, right? Legitimate ownership actually implies discrimination. That's what makes it your property, because you can do that, right? You can exclude. That's literally what it implies. The whole concept of private property, by literal definition, right? When it comes to discrimination, it implies discrimination. Now, what the conversation that we're really having right now is what type of discrimination people find should be legal, more so, because no person, I would hope, unless maybe you're a communist, would say that your property should be accessible to everybody, no matter what. That's not really the case. I think what we're having now is a conversation more so pertaining to race, sexuality, stuff like that. And the reality is, dude, it's their property. It's right. If they want to do it, they should be absolutely free to discriminate for any reason. My argument is that I would rather them be open with it. The law now actually, and it has since the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights Acts laws that are in each individual state, it allows them to hide behind it, right? So you don't know whose pockets you're lining that may hate you because you're black or so. I would much rather you have a damn sign in the door that says, don't like black people. I bet. Let me go not give you money. And all civil rights laws are basically saying you want people to hate you, you want them to take your money. You want to make them richer. And I'm like, why would you want to do that? That doesn't make any sense. But on a serious note, the reality is that is what is implied with private property rights. And I know people may find a discrimination by way of certain things, like I said, race and so forth, not right. And most people will agree with you. However, it's not on you to police their thoughts in that regard. And you become the aggressor if you think that they should be forced to service or sell their goods, exchange their goods with you if they don't want to for any reason. That's just how liberty works.
Robert Chappelle just said to remember that if you're not voting for Biden, you might be a free thinker.
Oh, true. That's true. But if you're not voting for Biden, you ain't black as well.
Right.
Remember that.
And then someone posted that apparently this video is monetized and is getting BLM ads before it. So that's a thing.
I get that all
That's
the time.
ironic.
Like, yeah, very ironic, right? maybe it's me. Maybe it's like they like I don't know. They're like seeing like I don't know. They have some sort of technology that's scanning like the black man in the post, and it's like because they're trying to amplify voices. They're like, oh, we got to let them make money. But as soon as they find out who I am, they're gonna demonetize it. Give it some time. Give it some time.
Yeah, I got an email. I've gotten actually a few angry emails over the last couple of weeks because I guess my one monetized video keeps getting a Joe Biden ad in front of it. And so people are like, are you sponsored by Joe Biden?
Oh, man. They act like we control that. I get that all the time. I get Bernie Sanders ads like popping up. It's like, why is Bernie Sanders? I was like, you think I damn control that? If he want to pay, it's good. Hopefully, he is paying the,
right?
Put his ads on my stuff. They need to be seeing this.
Draxus Storm Shadow says, Liberty Doll, did you ever check out Lars Larson? I did not, because I give myself too many things to do. Michael S. says, this is for the Move to Texas Fund. Thank you. It's not Texas, but you're making Texas sound real good.
Come on with it.
Vernon Meigs says, when libertarians try to court non-libertarians just to pander for inclusivity, we don't rationally convince them and they just crowd and drive out the principled libertarians.
Yep. Fact.
Yep. Absolutely. Like, Bill Weld.
Oh my God, that fucking guy.
I always
one of the more illibertarian candidates. I mean, we've had some pretty illibertarian, but he's got to be one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm. I tell people, like, even if he's calling himself a libertarian, you never trust a politician from Massachusetts. Ever. Ever. Fix Bayonet says, yep, that they put an SJW commercial on this video.
Of course.
So, I mean, maybe that's all of the commercials right now. I don't know.
That's true. That is very true. Just like it was with the COVID thing. Now everything's signaling. We're in this together.
Yeah, I don't even... Yeah, very together.
Right.
Jesse Meek says, my presence will be hit and miss. I'm hauling ass down I-80, trying to find a place to park for the night. Nice to meet you, Mr. July. Love your work. Could talk guns and comics with you for hours.
Oh, for sure. Appreciate that.
I will say, my husband's at the point where, like, he doesn't even, like, read the comics or anything. He just, like, listens to your videos and be like, oh, okay, I know what that one's about.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I funnel it for you. A lot of the newest stuff is trash anyway, so let me incentivize you not to buy it.
Well, I mean, and he loves all the superhero shows, and like I can't the Flash. I'm sorry, that's like the one that I cannot get behind. I'll watch them. I love like the live action movies. I love the animated movies, but I can't. Some of them, like when Supergirl did the whole thing about illegal
that
aliens.
Whole anti-gun thing triggered
yes!
It triggered me to the oblivion, man. Like,
I stopped watching after that.
Yeah, that was my stop. That was my stopping point too. That was when I was like, I can't do this anymore. I tried. I was reviewing it. That was actually my video review of that. Was my first ever video that I did that had 1 million views.
Wow!
Me dropping because I went in on that. I was trying, man. I was like, trying to give it some time. It started okay, and then it just went, oh my God. And I was like, nah, man, like this, I can't tolerate this. I can't tolerate this at all. So I ran my big mouth about that one.
I mean, it's at the point where it feels so forced, and I know that you've talked about that. Like they're creating these characters or changing these characters just for the sake of changing them. And like I look back to, I'm a '90s kid, so I think of like, for example, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Mm-hmm. Everyone goes back and says like, oh, it's diverse, and they did all these things. They didn't push it down your throat. Well, now I'm seeing articles randomly popping up like 20 years later that are like, oh, remember Buffy the Vampire Slayer? It's not as diverse as you thought that it was. And it's like, man, what?
It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. These people are never satisfied.
No, and now they have to do all these remakes, and it's just, ugh. A Very Dead Horse says, this is the crossover I didn't know I wanted. Cheers.
Nice.
Crip Crack Attack says, when are they going to cancel the Democratic Party for their history in racism? Probably never.
Good point.
Because that's never going to actually get talked about.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they get to put the blinders on there, or make some lie up that the party switched, which doesn't make sense, but they get to lie with that.
They do. Christoph says, get that man a Hawaiian shirt. Oh, that'll really throw him off. Rob Allen says, sorry, late to the party. Who is this guy? I like him. I have the firearm purchase problem here in Seattle, well, 20 miles south of Seattle. To everyone, this is Eric July, and he is a musician and YouTuber, and he talks about comic books and superheroes and cancel culture, and you're the co-founder of Being Libertarian.
Oh yes,
too,
co-founder
right?
of Being Libertarian. So everything that you see coming out of that is product of me. I forgot about that. Co-founder of Being Libertarian as well.
You're just in everything.
Yeah, I got my footprint and everything. Probably too many things. But I'm trying.
I have that problem too.
Yeah, I'm young still, so I'm like, it's better now than later. I just turned 30. You know what I'm saying? So I got a lot more time in me. So if I'm gonna run myself thin, I need to do it right now than trying to pick it up when I'm old.
Yep. Torque1 says, pleasure to meet you, Mr. July. If you ever accidentally find yourself stuck in California, my house is your sanctuary with beer.
Thank you, because I probably need it if I'm out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in California, you're in trouble. James Alonso telling us that he's late. Mandatory Carry says, hi, boomer. I mean, fix. So that's a friend. FL Sheepdog says, if you bought the property and paid tax on it, how is it yours when they continue to tax it every year?
That's that's the quasi ownership that the state feels as if they own your property and everything else. So yep, there it is.
Jesse Meek says that gun control episode was the last episode of Supergirl that he watched too.
Good. I think that did it for a lot of people, man. Like,
yeah,
but yeah, that did it for me for sure. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm completely out on this show. I tried, I attempted, and can't nobody ever said that I didn't try, because I watched every episode up until the end, and I was doing my reviews and stuff. But then I was like, you know what, this is it. Like, I can no longer force myself to watch this.
And then they had was it Batgirl, where they made the trans character, and then now that person quit the show or something.
Oh well, oh god dog.
Sorry
with the
sorry if
Batwoman
you're
thing,
triggered.
that's another one. It's like another one. Tried to give it a chance, man. Tried to give it a chance, and then out of nowhere it took a left. Like, I'm like, okay, we know this is a lesbian character. That's canon. That's our comic book. We already know this. There's no way that they're going to do the obvious and just completely zero in on her sexuality and have that drive the entire damn. There's nowhere they're going to do that. And then, by episode 4, that's pretty much what it was. And I'm just like, God dang it, man. Like, it's like they have an inability to write characters that are not white, straight men. And be creative with it. Like, white straight men, they write them, and it's like because there's no social ill to fall back on, they are forced to be creative. Whereas you get definitely nowadays, you get black characters, you get gay characters, and so forth. It's like they have to dwell on the fact that they're black, they're gay, or something like that, and they have to drive 3 episodes in a row that they're emphasizing. It's like, dude, nobody wants to watch that, man.
I don't even really want relationships in my superhero or sci-fi stuff.
That's true. Not to that degree. Like, it's cool if they're they acknowledge they're in a relationship, fine. But we want to see people kick ass. We don't want to be seeing all of that other nonsense. Like, that's not why we're into this stuff. That's not what it's about.
Yep. I mean, that's why I stopped watching The Walking Dead. That's why, one of the many reasons why the new Star Trek sucks.
Oh, man. A lot of my colleagues, my YouTube colleagues, man, have been going in on Star Trek.
DJ Cogdale says, I love the new single Backwards dropped. Do you tour or just play shows in Texas? Keep slaying leftists and communists in debates too, Eric.
No, I mean, we don't even play locally unless it's on a tour. So we tour nationally and internationally. Obviously not right now, because nobody can tour. But yeah, no, we play everywhere, and I appreciate that support for the new single. That was a throwaway single that got some interesting reactions, because a lot of people were like, "Hey, why was it this on the album? Because this is my favorite song that you guys have ever released." And I'm like, "What the hell? That was not the idea. It didn't make the album, but it like grounds us, because we're like, maybe this is a sound that people would much rather hear, because it's unorthodox. I do all the cleans, I do every vocal on that particular song, and it just kind of forced us to think about sort of the direction that we go in going into the sophomore album, because a lot of people seem to really love this recent song, and it's called The Great Equalizer. Yeah, thank you. It's called The Great Equalizer. It's on every single major digital platform that you can possibly think of.
And I know we only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to talk about, since you like brought up music and like the scene, and again culture. So there was that article that came out about like the top Black voices and like the metalcore scene, and they put like your old band without you, but not your new band.
Oh my God, it was, and that was blatant. They didn't do that on accident. Again, it goes to the politic thing, and a lot of people don't like me in this industry. All press knows exactly who we are. They've covered us before. It wasn't until people really understood what our politics were where a lot of that started to decline, the coverage. But I mean, we still, we knock it out of the park with sales and stuff like that. But they don't like us. So it was so blatant, and because they like the whole concept of the article, like the whole caption is like they want to point out Black voices that have like sort of built up this metalcore scene. It is completely illogical for you to mention the band that I laid the damn blueprint for, that is just nothing but a copy of everything that we do now, because I again left that band doing what I do now in backwards. And they didn't. They put bands that have not. We outsell more than half of those damn bands. We outsell them. We have more views. We have all of that, and it was blatant. It was so blatant. But again, goes to show, like I was talking about earlier in the show, is that it's a specific Black narrative that they want to drive, which is why when all of this stuff popped off, and you had all of these guys in these bands writing op-eds and stuff like that, not one of those metal or scene publications ever reached out to me to get my perspective on anything. It wasn't until I started calling them out when like Loudwire reached out to me, and it was like, would you like to do an op-ed? And thankfully, big shout out to them. They did publish that, but it wasn't until I called them out about it. Like, why you're getting the opinions of a guy from Event Sevenfold about Black Lives Matter. There's no Black dudes in that band, and you got a guy in your
they're
scene.
all really white.
Right, exactly, right. And it's like you got a Black dude that's in your scene that you know exactly who exists. On Loudwire, for example, we had the top for 5 weeks in a row. We had the top 5 single on their own platform on a little battle royale thing that they did. I don't know if they still do it, but back then they did it. We had the top 5 single 5 weeks in a row. We made their Hall of Fame. They know exactly who we are. They've covered us plenty of different times. And again, it's not just was Loudwire. All of the metal injections of the world, all of the ones that know exactly who we are, never ever reached out to me. And there's a reason why. It's not because they don't know why I exist. They've covered us before. It's politics. So what it's all about.
I mean, and there is unfortunately a lot of gatekeeping in the music scene. Like every few like weeks, maybe it seems like some commie gets mad at something that I said, and then they like screenshot my profile and send it to everyone, and then I'm like flooded with messages about how I'm not allowed to like metal or punk rock because I'm a capitalist, so I clearly don't understand and am too dumb to get the music. And it's like, what?
Doesn't even make sense. It's like that thread that I got included in with they were like, it was a big thread that was like all the rock Black voices that have existed over the years. So it has, it had even guys from Living Color back in the Gap. It was like so Bad Brains. It was like so many, and obviously it gets to me, and that's when everybody had a damn problem, because it gets to me and guys like, one comment specifically I mentioned in the op-ed where it's like, this guy's an ANCAP, take him off the list. Mm-hmm. It's like, really?
Well, I mean, and like, libertarianism and anarcho capitalism, bottom line, it's about self-ownership, and I don't know of anything that's more empowering than self-ownership.
Bingo. It doesn't even make sense that they would be in opposition to that. But yeah, they think that they own it. They think they have monopoly on the truth. They have monopoly, and that's why they hate us so much, because it's not just because we exist, it's because we see success. I remember when we first came out, they were like, there's no way this band is going to last. And then we we dropped that album, and we not number 2 Heat Seeker album, number 1 alternative new artist on all sound scans. Like, we knocked it out. We did more than just okay. We knocked it out the park. And they hate us for it because we thankfully are able to go through unconventional methods to get our stuff. We don't have to depend on the the publications and stuff to get our music out there, thankfully. And I know they hate us for it. They hate us.
Oh, I'm sure. I am sure. Rod Miller says, I wonder if your guest remembers the song Cult of Personality by Living Colour. Seems they predicted 2020 happenings 30 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cult of Personality. That's exactly what we're living in, too.
Absolutely. A Very Dead Horse says Eric needs to talk to Adam Friended and PSA Sitch. There are a couple of cool anti-SJW centrists that talk philosophy but understand libertarianism.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So that's good to know. And let's see. We have time for maybe one more question. Valhalarchus says, Mr. July, if you ever going to find yourself in Western Wisconsin, it'd be great to sit down for some EDH and a beer with you.
Sick. Wisconsin. I think that's one like one of the states that I don't think we've performed at or anything like that. That'd be cool.
And I guess we have one more. FL Sheepdog 1 says, after Atlanta burns, what should they build there? Oof.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's probably going to be way worse than what they have now, whatever it is, because the guys that are burning it down aren't exactly free marketers. Yeah, I feel for people that are out there, because there's a lot of liberty-minded folk. Jeffrey Tucker and all those guys out there as well in Atlanta.
Yep.
So
yeah.
It sucks.
It's funny that you mentioned him as different people have the different crowds that they attract. Because I'm speaking at PorkFest next Friday, and I'm right before Tom Woods, and then Jeffrey Tucker is speaking, and I'm like, oh my god, Jeffrey Tucker.
Man, that guy right there, man. He's a very smart guy. He's an incredibly smart man.
I'm feeling intimidated. I'm oh my god, I got to do really good.
Knocking out the park, set him up. You got it.
All right, so I know that you have another stream that you have to hop to, and thank you so much for coming on and chatting with it. We had at the top, we had almost 700 people here watching you, so that's awesome. So if you want to remind everyone all the places to find you, and everyone else, I'm still going to be here to my usual 8:30. I know it's probably going to drop by a couple hundred once you leave, but I'll still be here. So no.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on, and we can do this again.
Definitely.
I have more time then. That was an error on my behalf. But yes, at Eric D. July, you can find me on Twitter. Young Group of 5'9" is my YouTube. My band Backwards is on all major digital platforms. We got YouTube. YouTube music videos, all of that. The band's called Backwards, BACKWORDZ.
Right. And you have all the social medias, and I did link your YouTube and the band's YouTube in the description for folks that want to check it out. So again, thank you so much for coming on, and I would love to have you back. This was
Absolutely.
I feel like we could complain for hours.
Absolutely, we could. Well, again, I appreciate you having me, and like I said, we'll do it again. We'll do it again for sure.
Absolutely. Have a nice night.
All right, you too. See you. Peace out.
Bye. All right, folks. So I'm glad that we were at least able to have Eric for an hour. He is a busy guy, so I'm going to go in and check the rest of the super chats. Hopefully I didn't miss any questions for him. You guys it was going pretty fast. So Robert Chappelle says that my live chats were heavy with Tom Steyer ads a few months ago. That's interesting. I mean, he was one of the less scary of the candidates, I guess. Sean Marolf says, never trust a career politician, no matter what party. Almighty Beej says, I like this crossover. Keep up the work of bringing liberty to the masses. I like this, calling it a crossover. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but it is. Shep says, hello. Let's see. Those got We got that one. Callie Man, thank you for the sticker. Robert Chappelle says Salt, Living Color, Fishbone, Run DMC, and the Beastie Boys on one bill at the Hollywood Palladium in 1983. The good old days when promoters didn't know how to package black bands. Well, it's funny that he mentioned that about the music article, because I was reading that, and I listened to metal and metalcore and all of that, and like I didn't recognize most of the bands that were on that list, and so it's kind of funny that he wasn't included. Like, Backwards and Eric July weren't included, but everyone else on there was. So let's see. Andy Robichaud says, see you next Friday. Oh, that's right. Yes. So the folks that don't know, I think that I mentioned it on the stream before. I am speaking at PorkFest next Friday, so there will not be the usual live stream next week. In fact, I have to finish writing that speech, so that's super exciting. So I guess since we have half an hour left, we will chat about some of the other stuff that's going on in the news. So I said that the title of this would be Cancel Culture and Virtue Signaling and all of that. So right before I started the stream, I was able to drop a video about Domino's and how Twitter came out and tried to cancel Domino's. I'm actually going to check and see, since you guys are asking when was my last monetized video. Oh! The Domino's video is monetized. That is cool, because when I posted it and jumped on here, it told me that it was checking. It was doing a special check to see if it could be monetized. Larry Pierce says, hey, you skipped me? Let me see. Sometimes there's a weird thing between the two windows. You are not coming up, buddy, so I don't know what's going on with that. Sometimes things don't go through either. Omega Rayset says career politicians are crap, term limits necessary. I agree. Q says Domino's paid for the publicity. Well, I mean, I do really admire their response, because there are so many other companies right now that are catering. Like I said, I got an email from my deodorant company recently, because I go the all natural. I got one today about from like Walgreens. I'm just getting emails everywhere from all of these different companies that are suddenly virtue signaling. And like I said, Boston has declared racism to be a public health emergency in the state of Massachusetts. And there is a long history of corruption and racism in the Boston Police Department. And I know there's a lot of folks that say, like, oh, there isn't really racist policing tactics and things like that. But no, Boston has been investigated several times and has been proved to be doing racist policing. And nothing ever happened until now. All of a sudden, Mayor Marty Walsh put out this executive order about how they're going to look into it some more and donate money to it. And, blah, 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 blah. And, Eric had a really good point that, it is about lifting up voices, but it's never about the right voices. And that is the same whether we are talking about race, sexuality, gender, sex, whatever. A perfect example is like Blair White, for example. So Blair White is trans, and I mean, she gets crapped on all the time. And, I hadn't really thought of it until Eric said it tonight, but like the tokenism, that is exactly what it is. And I mean, I don't think that that's really necessarily just about race. I mean, as a woman, I get comments all the time about, you know, instead of, as he said, like the white guy hiding in the corner with me, it's, you know, I get told that like, oh, my pimp must be in the corner, or my dad, or like the old white guy that's like writing my videos and like feeding me lines. And it is really, frankly, quite insulting. Now, Greg Weaver says, isn't cancel culture the free market in action? Consumers protesting companies and people and voting with their wallet to punish bad behavior. Well, I would say yes and no. So the point I make in the Domino's video is that, yes, you know, finding out that you do not like a company's business practices or the way they make their products or something, and then you decide not to utilize those products or services, absolutely 100%. But I mean, I think of cancel culture more as, you know, when people want every company and every product they use to align with them politically or to some like niche political philosophy, and so they bully companies into, I wouldn't even say having that stance. I would say more bullying companies into making a statement about that stance. Because again, you know, as I said with Eric, you know, if these companies really cared so much about X, Y, Z cause of the day, well, why are they just announcing it now? Like, why did they do something about it before? Why couldn't it be seen in the way they navigated the world or navigated their policies? So I think that there's a very stark difference between combing through the internet looking for a fight, number one, finding a company and finding that you don't agree with their policies, versus forcing companies to align with you. Because, you know, there was in one of Eric's videos, he talks about how people complain about the diversity of superhero characters in comic books and things like that. And he makes a good point, and he says, well, how many of these people actually buy and read comic books? You know, are these people actually utilizing the products and services of these companies that they're railing against, or are they just looking for something to be upset about? And, you know, so I think that that's a really big difference. So people in the chat are asking me to talk about Chick-fil-A. So I saw some headlines about Chick-fil-A, but I didn't have time to read what was going on. I just saw something about how they were going to be like losing Christian customers. So people are telling me I need to be more creative with my video titles because of the algorithms. So sometimes it's not even the title. Sometimes it's the tags, because there's been times that I've like put up a video and it says that it's okay, and then I do the tags and then it says that it's not okay. So I mean, it can be all kinds of things. So let's see what's going on at Chick-fil-A. So because that's what the people are asking, and that's what the people demand. So let's see what's going on with Chick-fil-A. Okay, so it's a Fox video that's coming up, or Fox article. So, the window keeps skipping. We'll go with this one from Business Insider here. Chick-fil-A CEO urged, telling me to get rid of my ad blocker. Chick-fil-A CEO urged white people to take action against racism and said he does not blame looters after multiple locations damaged this week. That is not the tagline that popped up on the search engine. So that's interesting. Chick-fil-A CEO Dan Cathy urged white people to repent and take action against racism during a roundtable discussion Sunday at Passion City Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Was this the incident where they were calling things white blessings, or was that something else? So he urged white people to take action against racism amid a period of tension and protest in the U.S. following the death of Rayshard Brooks. In a Sunday roundtable discussion in Passion City Church in Atlanta with a Christian rapper, he spoke of repentance and understanding. Okay. I don't think that understanding is bad. I think repentance gets into some murky territory because then you know, it's holding someone responsible for the sins of the father type thing. And, you know, for example, you know, I mean, I don't think that you need to apologize for something that you didn't do. I mean, and you can go into the discussion of like implicit biases and like microaggressions and things like that. But like, so for example, like my family as a whole was so dirt poor and from Canada. I'm a first generation American, actually, on my mom's side. And my mom's family didn't even have running water or plumbing until 1956. That's how poor they were. So, I mean, they were not involved in like the plantations or the slave trade or anything like that. On my dad's side, also from Canada, from the Indian reservations, they were horse thieves, I guess, and like rum runners. So, and like, you know, backwoods, hillbilly, moonshiners. So, I mean, we personally didn't have anything to do with slavery. So, I mean, I guess it depends what you're asking people to repent about. Rigger W8 says maybe Chick-fil-A should repent for the Crusades. Oh, yeah, and people are saying, why do people feel guilty for things they weren't even alive for? People talking about not abandoning Chick-fil-A for their waffle fries. I've never eaten at a Chick-fil-A. Having a problem with gluten is not conducive to eating fast food. The CEO said that a dozen Chick-fil-A restaurants had been vandalized in the last week, but urged white people not to place blame on the vandals. So this is interesting. Because locally, I'm not far from a city that is majority people of color, and there is a Chick-fil-A there, and everyone thought that the protests were going to be really bad and really devolve into riots, and it was like all over the local news. And actually, there were a couple buildings that did get broken into, and one was set on fire for approximately 30 seconds. But all in all, compared to everything else that I've seen in the country, it was actually really peaceful, except for those like 2 isolated incidents. And people I was like watching on Twitter and on Facebook, and there were mad people talking about how they were going to go down and personally defend Chick-fil-A in case there were riots. So I think that that's kind of funny. Someone's asking if Ripa has been on yet. You just missed him. We only had him for an hour, so he signed off at 8 because he had another show to go do. So unfortunately, there was a scheduling issue. It's like some time zone stuff going on. So I guess this explains why so many people on Twitter are talking about Christians will be canceling Chick-fil-A. Jesse Meek says the Washington statue is being burned in Portland. So, I mean, I think, you know, and this was something that I was going to talk with Eric with, and we didn't get that far. Like the toppling of statues, you know, if you as a community want to get rid of a statue, then, you know, go through the proper channels or whatever to do it. But, you know, when people are taking them down on their own or burning them, or I mean, that's like dangerous. And I mean, I get worried, like you know, in the case of Confederate soldiers, for example, I'm not saying that it's right to pull down statues. So don't get me wrong, because someone, you know, in another stream, I said I understood people's perspective, and someone got really pissed off and said that I was rationalizing and justifying. No, understanding someone, you can understand someone's perspective and not agree with it. And actually, I think that it is key to understand other people's perspectives to figure out how to change minds and win hearts. Basically, you know, if you want to bring more people into the ideas of liberty, you need to understand their perspective and how they've arrived at the actions and thought processes and beliefs that they've arrived at. I think that that's very important to understand people and to understand how they tick in order to be able to share ideas, at least effectively. And I think that the left has proven to be very good at that. They understand base instincts and fear and collectivism, and that's what they prey on. But regardless, you know, so I understand the perspective of people being upset about, say, Confederate statues or Columbus or conquistadors in New Mexico, whatever. I understand the perspective. Again, I'm not saying that, you know, taking down statues is right, but I mean, something like, you know, people are attacking like Jefferson statues and things like that. And yes, Jefferson was a slave owner, but I believe he also tried to, he wrote materials about abolishing slavery and wanting to abolish slavery, and they failed in a vote. But, you know, people are, you know, tearing down Jefferson statues and things like that. And I think that people are just not understanding the history. I think that people are getting riled up. You know, there's been statues of abolitionists that have been vandalized and torn down. And it's like, they were an abolitionist. They were against slavery. They were against the ownership of human beings. And yet, you know, I think that people are attacking things. I think that people are getting like riled up and caught up with their emotions, and they are attacking things indiscriminately at this point. John Strong says Jefferson also had a romantic and intimate relationship with one of his slaves. I agree. He did. I mean, that's historic fact. Midas Welby says deleting history is a bad idea. I agree, because, I mean, we have to learn from history, right? We have to, A, know where we came from, how we got here, and B, you know, don't repeat it. You know, they say that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and I think that that's exactly what's going to happen. And there's already so many things that have been deleted from history. And it reminds me of 1984. So if anyone has read 1984, where they're constantly rewriting history and changing the narrative and going back and like deleting old entries and things like that. I mean, it's the same thing that's going on now. And it's just, it's such a bad idea. It's moving backwards instead of progressing. Jonathan Stevie says the left use people. They don't care about any of these groups. And unfortunately, I agree. And it's really unfortunate. You know, people, and I've had people that I know personally, friends, family members, acquaintances say to me, you know, that it's all the fault of like the poor racist rednecks in the South. Well, I mean, maybe those folks don't know any better. Maybe they're not actually racist. We don't know. But what it comes down to at the end of the day, and I posted this on Twitter the other day, is, you know, two-teeth Uncle Joe Billy Bob is not the guy that's writing government policy. It is the politicians, and I hate to use the word elite, but it's the elites at, you know, the top tiers of government and media and culture that are pushing these ideas and writing these policies. It is not Uncle Joe, two-teeth Billy Joe Bob down south with his like overalls or whatever and his, you know, shotgun just trying to live life and get by. Like, it's not his fault that we have the war on drugs, for example. It's not his fault that we had redlining or any of the other policies that are, it's not his fault that we have a welfare state that keeps people stuck at the bottom and does not promote growth. You know, and it's not two teeth Uncle Joe Billy Bob that's militarizing the police force and giving them, these battle tanks, essentially. Indy 500 says, I was born in St. Louis and still work in the city. There's a petition to change the name of the city. Why? I mean, I don't know anything about St. Louis. I'm assuming that was a real saint. And I will say, I growing up in New England, there is very much this huge, huge perception that the South is horribly racist and can't be fixed, and it's just like this wasteland of backwards segregation. But and there are a lot of people that think that. And I remember, granted, I have never been to the deep South. I've been to Florida, and when we checked out South Carolina, I learned something. I was surprised. There are more billboards with, people of color on them, advertisements. There was more integration, I think, from what I saw in my brief time there than up here in the North. And so I'm like, okay, well, is it really as backwards in some of these places as people think? And no, of course not. It's a narrative that is perpetuated, right? There's an agenda behind it. And, as Eric said, there is a reason that there are only certain voices that are like approved, right? When we're lifting up female voices, gay voices, trans voices, black voices, whatever the cause d'etre of the day, right? There is a reason that certain voices are picked, and it is when they fit into the narrative. FL Sheepdog says, when it's all over, make Atlanta a park with the world's largest Wendy's in the middle, surrounded by all the statues that were taken down, and a plaque describing the end of the Democratic Party. I don't think that we will ever see anything like that. Omega Rayset says, I'm black, experienced more racism in the North. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been hearing lately, with the exception of, I've heard that Atlanta has some really bad racist pockets to it. But again, I heard that from people that live up here. So, I don't really know how accurate that is. I'm not going to pretend to know the general day-to-day culture of Atlanta, Georgia, because I've never even been to Georgia besides like driving through it. Vernon Meeg says, even beyond the metalcore subgenre, the metal scene, power, prog, death, etc., is littered with virtue signalers. One of them that I was friends with blocked me because I was against riots and slogan activism. Yeah, it's I think people are getting canceled now. There was I woke up this morning to find myself tagged in a Twitter thread where there was some Antifa people that like found some account, one of the collapsitarian accounts on Twitter that I follow because they sometimes have some funny memes, and I guess that they had decided that guy personally was responsible for Boog memes and the Boog movement, and then we're systematically going through and trying to find all of his followers and like dox all of his followers and like downloaded all of his information and tweets to like some spreadsheet. I don't know. It was insane. The lengths that people are going through to push through a narrative and force other people into their viewpoints. And the thing is it is no different from when Eric was talking about like, the guy having the sign on his business saying that he doesn't like black people versus not. It's just these people aren't going to change their viewpoints. They're just going to keep them hidden. And in fact, when you force someone to do something, it usually builds resentment. So in the end, it just makes things even worse. I know a lot of these people think that they're doing good and are on like the right side, but they are just furthering the divide and pushing more and more people away from the cause. Jesse Meek says, come to Kansas, spend the day on the range, in the evening by the fire pit. That does sound nice. Jesse, okay, we got that one about the Washington statue. Let me reload these again and see. Okay. Robert Chappelle says, think basically. Shop wokely. At first I thought that was a typo. Chester Thomas. Thank you, Chester, for defending me the other day. By the way, I saw that and was very thankful because that was a very WTF out of left field thing. Says the left use fear and violence to get their way. No wonder they want to disarm everyone. Can you imagine if the Chop Zone was a right-wing group? Waco all over again. Absolutely. And I said that in one of the past streams that, yes, if it was a right-wing group, I mean, Waco, Ruby Ridge, the Bundy standoff, my God, I mean, the Bundy standoff ended better than I thought that it would. Still not great, obviously. Lavoy Finicum died and it was just awful, but it ended a lot better than it could have. You're never going to see that happen with like the Chop, Chaz, whatever it is. Sean Marolf says, Texas is the most inclusive state I have ever lived in. Texas sounds really nice. You guys make Texas sound awesome. Greg Weaver says, wasn't the Malheur takeover essentially the Chaz for righties? Yeah, I suppose it was, really. I suppose it was, wasn't it? All right, I'm just going to... Luke himself says, Lavoy Finicum shot in the side with a foam bullet. See what happens when the whites stand against the government. Well, I mean, it's not just because I don't know how much you guys... Sorry, I'm like shifting in my seat here. I don't know how much you guys know about the I don't even know, the Indian movement, I guess, for lack of a better term, in the 70s, with like the occupation of Wounded Knee and stuff like that. Oh God, those poor people were just dragged up and down and were destroyed even more than they are now. We had the occupation of Wounded Knee, the feds, they created the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and they infiltrated the tribal councils. They infiltrated like every possible aspect that they could. And, there were people that were found shot dead, like Native American activists were found shot dead. And like the government was doing autopsies and ruling that they died of exposure. And then there was Leonard Peltier, who they accused of shooting federal officers. And he is still in prison to this day, even after it was found out that the FBI agents that testified in court lied, even after it was found out that the ballistics did not match his gun, and he is still in prison to this day. And I don't understand. That's one that I don't understand. Like, how come when anyone brings up, all of the atrocities that government has done to people of different, races, whatever, like no one brings up any of that stuff. And I wonder, like, it's strange that has disappeared and is one of the things that has largely been lost. And it's yeah, Nessie NG says exposure to what? Exposure to bullets? Exactly. No, they said that she froze to death. And it's like that is not what happened at all. And interestingly enough, one of the famous photographs from that of an Indian guy holding up an AK-47, I went to school with that guy's daughter in college, which was pretty cool. But, and I never learned about that stuff in school. I even took a Native American literature class because I know it's cliche to say because the Elizabeth Warren stuff, but I do have family that originated in the Iroquois and Huron tribes, and I've never met them, but I do have family members on a reservation in Canada. So I was like really interested in that stuff for a while. And I didn't even learn about like the whole BIA stuff in like some of the Native American literature classes that I took. I learned about it from a song. When I first heard about it from a song by an artist called Buffy St. Marie. And then I was like, well, what is this? And I started like Googling and reading about it. And it's just like the government has committed so many atrocities. And like I said, I really don't understand like why that movement isn't one that's talked about. Even when we had the everyone was protesting with like the pipelines that were supposed to be going through, I think it was Lakota land, and that was a big thing. It never came up with that too, and it's really bizarre to me. I mean, because talk about a people, that's another people that they were promised X, Y, and Z, and of course the government never fulfilled their promises. And like, I mean, if you want to see the horrors of socialism and all of that, and I mean, how much a government can destroy people, like all you have to do is like go to a reservation. Yeah, Michael S. says they were always swept aside throughout history. And it's just, that drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. All right, so we'll check the last few. Oh, I guess we did get all of the super chats. Cool. Let's see. We'll get a few comments in here. Let's see. People saying they love my shirt. Thank you. It came from Libertarian Country. They are listed down in the description. Now I hate when people do live streams and then they like pause and I'm the one that's doing like the pausing now. James Deneen says, I live north of Minneapolis and it seems to me that the media is lying because no one cares what you look like outside of any major city. Well, I mean, I will say these instances of excessive use of force and police brutality, I mean, they do happen in areas where there are like sheriffs, but I think that they are overwhelmingly found in big cities that have their own dedicated police forces. And as a, Northern New England person, I did not learn until the last maybe like 5 years or so that there are places that don't have a dedicated police force, because up here there is state police, and then every individual town has their own town police force, and they're not sheriffs and deputies. They are people that train in the police academies with the state police that are then sent to towns, and the colleges have their own police force that are also trained in the police academies. There are some like county sheriffs here and there, but they largely don't do really anything. The only things that around here that I've ever seen sheriffs do is transport prisoners and serve papers. Like, that's it. And excessive force issues, you do still hear about them with sheriff's offices and things, but I don't think it's at all to the degree that you hear about it in like city police forces. And those are left-controlled cities. Nathan Collier says, yeah, we just have state troopers. Andy says Mass is not northern New England. No, I meant like north of the country, and then I ended up like reining it into Massachusetts. I'm trying not to talk too much about what state I live in, just because, you know, the whole doxing thing. I mean, it's out there, but Robert Chappelle says 2/3 of the population of Nevada is policed by a metropolitan police force with an elective sheriff. Okay. Mr. Jones says, I lived in a town whose police department ran 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Any time outside of that, you had to call the county sheriff for service. Yeah, ours is like a 24/7 thing. So, all right, guys. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I know that I normally stay a little bit later, but I am starving, and so I want to eat some dinner before my D&D group starts. And I think we're starting a little bit early tonight. So, anyways, thank you for everyone that tuned in. I hope that you enjoyed having Eric on. I had a blast. That hour that he was on went really fast. So I'm definitely going to ask him to come on today again. So again, next week I will not be here. I will be at PorkFest. I will be rubbing elbows. Well, hopefully I'll meet some people. There's supposed to be people there from the Reason Foundation, from FEE. Jeffrey Tucker is going to be there. Tom Woods. I'm really bad at networking and making new friends, but like maybe I can network and make new friends. And, you know, maybe we'll have some like, equally high-profile guests as Eric on the show at some point, because that would be really cool, and it would be a different flavor for some of you guys, because I know some of you definitely know who those folks are, and some of you do not. Andy says, any softball questions you want me to ask during your keynote? That's a good question. So I haven't finished writing it yet, and I have a whole hour. I am not speaking for a whole hour. My goal is 20 to 30 minutes, I guess, and then people can ask questions. I don't know. I'll have to write it, finish working it out, and see what I come up with. But I don't know. I'll touch base with you. I know I haven't responded to your email yet, but I'm gonna. Everyone says leave them wanting more. Lily Fields, yeah, Eric was on from 7 p.m. to 8 because he ended up having another commitment from 8 o'clock on. So yes, so no live stream next week. Though, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll do something really quick from PorkFest, but not even sure there will be Wi-Fi available. So that's why I'm not promising anything. And I will not be doing TikTok dances during my speech. I am too old. I'm too old to use TikTok, quite frankly. And yes, people are asking about PorkFest. So I'll actually put the link in the chat real quick before I leave you guys. So PorkFest is the Porcupine Freedom Festival that is held in Lancaster, New Hampshire every year. This is PorkFest, 17. I spoke at it actually in 2014 as well, but at that point, that was I was asked by a friend to do a panel with him, as opposed, it's not letting me post the link. That's strange. As opposed to this time, I was personally asked by the organizer, and I'm listed in the featured speakers along with Tom Woods and Jeffrey Tucker. No pressure. Who else do we got in there? I'll let you guys know, because I mean, I know that a few of you folks are trying to come up. And some of you are local to New Hampshire. My friend Gardner Goldsmith is going to be coming to hang out, possibly. So that's cool, because I've never met him in person. So we have Corey DeAngelis from Reason. We have the Bitcoin Motorist is coming up. who else? Holly Bean is the chair of the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. Carrie McDonald from the Foundation for Economic Education. The CEO of, I think it's spelled or said library, the LBRY, Jeffrey Tucker. Someone from Verizon Media. Philip Magnus, also from the he's from the American Institute for Economic Education, I think it is. Bitcoin people, Tom Woods, someone from George Mason. We've got the former president of the Free State Project. So there's going to be a whole bunch of cool folks. So that'll be pretty exciting. It'll be interesting to meet a whole bunch of new people and try not to just freeze and scream internally. All right, so for realsies, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Tickets are still available, but the campground is sold out. I have to find out if I actually have to buy my ticket. I'm not staying at the campground, so... but it's a week-long... Or no, it's usually a week-long event, but they're only doing it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I think Sunday this year, because they had to... They had to put it together real quick because of the COVID-19 84. All right. So that's PorcFest. That's what's going on next week. So that is it, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in, for hanging out. Thank you for all of the super chats and all the comments and questions. And so I will see you in 2 weeks. And of course, check out all the links down in the description and Eric's channel as well. So have a good night. Bye.